Alright. We are going to start in 1 minute. If you are out there in YouTube land, folks, we will start in 1 minute. I know timer's a little messed up. I got 3:46, so I don't know how my timer got messed up, but I don't want to start before the timer goes off. Feels like that would be bad luck, so I'm not going to. If you are already here and you want to say hey in the chat, go right ahead. Let's see how many folks we got here. 4 watching now. It was 8 a second ago. What happened, guys? You ditching me? You leaving me alone? Oh, we jumped up to 5. That's good. I have a self-esteem problem, so if you guys leave in the middle of this, I'm going to be very sad. So please do not ditch on the... I mean, if you're here, don't leave. Okay, hey, we got 11 people now. That's good. The world understands my need to be loved, so I'm glad people are starting to show up. It's super important to me. So here's a question for the chat. If you want to say hey, if you are in the chat right now, why don't you tell us where your best vacation ever was to? So the best vacation you've ever been on, where was that? I'll share first. So the best vacation that I was ever on would probably be to Hawaii. We went to Hawaii for 2 weeks. Saw a bunch of cool stuff there. Ate a lot of Spam. It was surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. So we got a lot of... Okay, Jupiter, Florida. Never been there. Michigan. I have also never been to Michigan. I've never even... I don't think I've ever even been... Well, okay, no, that's not true. I went to Kalamazoo once. Whoa, we got... Michigan's getting a lot of love in the chat. Who knew Michigan was the vacation hotspot? So, Michigan. I'm going to have to plan my next vacation to Michigan. Actually, this summer we're going on a 21-day camping trip through California and Arizona. So that'll be fun. But it's no Michigan, I'll tell you that right now. Traverse City. I've been to Kalamazoo. I don't know if that's close to Traverse City. I don't even know where Traverse City is. Okay, folks. Enough chit-chatting. Ooh, Carrie, you've been to Ireland. I'm a little bit jealous of that. I've never been to Ireland myself. Okay. Let's do some professional development, shall we? I don't know. Do you guys want to? Do you not want to? It's kind of up to you, I guess. Let's start off by going to that highlighted URL on your screen, bit.ly/FPSTT. That's going to get you to the resources page. So if you've never done one of these before, we are going to work through all of these links together. I encourage you to try as much as you can, but this is going to be a little different because most of these have been kind of creative in... I hate to say this, but maybe a little more fun. This is going to be more showing a couple of skills with using sheets. So, I would encourage you to try, but some of you will be a little intimidated about using sheets. I will say I use sheets daily to organize data and to sort data and to look at data in a bunch of different ways. So, I encourage you to do your best to participate along, but... you're already a winner because you're here, and you are going to learn so much just from watching. But again, like I said, please try to follow along. That first link is going to be your sign-in, so if you are a Fulton School teacher, go ahead and click that link and use that form to sign in so you can get credit for being here. If some people like, I can't remember who said... Okay, yeah, Nightacker, you got 2 people there. Just make sure you both use that form to sign in so you can both get your tech hours. I know that's why we do these things. The other thing, just be able to access Google Sheets. That's really the only tool we're going to use today. There will be some, there's going to be some templates at the end, but everything else is going to be linked. You just need to know how to access Google Sheets. So there's a link right there, sheets.google.com. Use your apps grid up here in the left-hand corner. To get to it that way as well. So those are all the ways that you can access Sheets. So If there are any people who've ever used Sheets before in the chat, feel free to share what you're doing with Sheets. I'll go ahead and share myself. So the main thing I did when I was in the classroom was using Google Sheets for student data. And I know in our district right now there's a lot of push to have visible data in your classroom, either on a data wall or someplace accessible. Even some students are using student portfolios to have a place where they are putting their data, for their achievement data for your class, or maybe all their classes together in one place. So that's one way to do it. But in general, a lot of us are intimidated about using Sheets for things like that. So I did it a lot, and I got really comfortable with it, but I pretty much was self-taught with the way that I did it. So I will show you how to do the basics with it. We will talk a little bit about formulas, and I know some people freak out whenever we talk about formulas. You think that you have to be some sort of computer whiz hacker genius to use a formula in Google Sheets. That's not true. There's a lot of basics that teachers should be able to use. So we will cover that. We'll talk about how you can sort it, how you can use the data to get charts for those really great visualizations, and then in the end I will show some templates for maybe some more fun, interesting things that you can do with your Google Sheets. So if we've all been able to sign in, I guess we will go ahead and just get started. All right, hey, we got Miss Millius is here. Welcome, glad you're here. Okay, so if you are just getting here one last time for the crew, you want to go to this website, and that's going to get you here to the page we're on. You just click on today's session, which is Give Sheets a Chance. Then make sure you sign in. So if you haven't signed in yet, just make sure you get signed in before this is over. And if this is good, just tell people to come back and watch the archive of it later. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you have any questions, I will stop periodically throughout, but just pop them into the chat box as they come up. So that's why I put the chat up on the screen, so I can keep track of what you guys are saying and what you need help with. So let's talk about freezing, sorting, and filtering, and that's going to be our first link right here. So anytime you click on one of these, I have it prompted to make a copy for you. The reason being, no, we don't probably all want to be in the same sheet at the same time, so we're going to all have a copy of the same sheet, right? So if this happens, just click make a copy. You don't need to freak out. You don't need to worry about it. Nothing weird's happening. All that's happening is you are getting a copy of this spreadsheet into your Google Drive. And we all have the same copy now. We all work on it together. So freezing rows and columns is probably the first step in figuring out how to do anything with data in a Google Sheet. And the reason that being able to freeze and lock those columns is so important is because it will let you start sorting data, and it will let you filter data. So the way that you freeze and I just have, this is just sample data. This is not from real students. I just made this up. These are all fake names, and you can experiment with it too. So don't worry, like this isn't anybody's grades or anything. And just for example, where you might get data, like this would be something that you could pull in directly from a Google form quiz, or you could just manually type your data into a spreadsheet like this. So like if you use another app to do quizzes or whatever. I'll get back to the sign-in sheet in just a second. You could pull in your data that way too. All right, hey, there were a couple of people who haven't got signed in yet, so if you need to get signed in to receive credit for today's session, you want to go to this URL, bit.ly/FPSTT, and it's going to be this first link right here at the very top. That's just a form. Fill that out, and you will get credit for being here. All right? If somebody else comes in, maybe I should just put that in the comments or something. I don't know. This happens every time. No big deal, no problem. I don't mind doing it. I just don't want to get behind. All right, so back here, we are going to freeze a column first. So the way that you're going to freeze a column is I'm going to highlight these first two right here. And I'm going to come up here to View, click Freeze, and I want to click the two columns. Now you'll see whenever I freeze those, I get a gray bar here. The reason I want to do that is now I can sort my data, but those two columns are always going to be there. So my student names are never going to leave, no matter if I have 8,000 columns. I can scroll and I'm always going to know whose score is right here in the first one. So that's the main reason that I like to freeze columns. You can also freeze rows. So I'm just going to click the 1 here for row number 1. You see how it highlights everything if I click that 1. So I'm going to click View, Freeze, and 1 row. And now I have a gray bar up here at the top. So no matter what, if I scroll, those are always going to be there. So I can look down here and I can see that Barbara scored 16 on Unit 1 no matter where I scroll on this Google Sheet. The other thing that freezing a row does is it allows you to sort. So let's say my kids just finished Unit 4 and I want to sort this sheet from top to bottom, so highest scores to lowest. If I come up here to the F cell right here and I click this little down arrow, I can I can sort this sheet from A to Z or from Z to A. So I'm going to click Z to A to go high to low. And you'll see that now I have in a descending order highest score to lowest score. So all the way from Lily, who got 20 out of 20, to Rebecca, who got 3 out of 20. I have those sorted in order now. So freezing your rows and columns is just a basic way to do basic data analysis, right? So that could be you had all your kids take a quiz and you just want to sort from lowest to highest, and maybe you know that your cutoff for retest was 14. So now I'm just going to come in here and I know that this group of students has to retake the test. Alright, so that's freezing rows and columns. That is a super basic skill that works with just about any set of data, as long as you have thought of what your header cells need to be. So the names of the units along with the names of the students or whoever it is that you're collecting data on. Alright. That's step 1. That's easy. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to move on to the next thing. I'll give you guys a few seconds to play around with that if you want. And then we're going to come over here and check out charts. Oh, good question. So let me go back over, reopen that tab. So here we have the question, can you freeze a row that is not at the top? For example, can I freeze the bottom row without freezing the ones in between? So if you want to do that, you can do up to current. Now what you can't do is like one in the middle. So if I click on 11 and I go freeze 1 row, pardon me, let me try that again. It's going to freeze that top row. If I go to freeze 2 rows, it's going to freeze the top 2 rows. If I go to freeze up to current row, it'll freeze everything down to where I'm selected. So you can't freeze one that's just out in the middle. It has to be descending from the top or going from the left to right. So it can't just be like on itself, on its own in the middle, if that makes sense. Good question though. But you can like freeze all the way down to, if you have 6 rows from the top, you can freeze all of those. Okay, we're going to move on and we are going to go to charts. So I used charts a lot when I was in the classroom because it was a really great, cheap way to get data visuals without having to like go buy a ream of construction paper and get scissors and glue a bunch of stuff together. You can just scrape out a chart that has data on it. So this is an example of something that I would have used in my classroom. It's got all my students, it's got their scores for those units, it's got total score, it's got pass fail retest, and then it's got all my min max average, and then my counting of students who pass and students who need to do a retest. So if you have data, and I'm not saying your data is going to look like this, but if you compile your data over time, it's very easy to get a chart from the data, and Google is going to do a pretty good job of knowing what you want. So I'm going to highlight from A1, so first name cell, through the total for the last student. I'm going to select all of that down to the Angela's total here. And over here in the bottom right-hand corner, might be a little bit hard to see, there's a tool that is called Explore. And when I click that, and since I'm in a spreadsheet, Google is going to think, okay, you're wanting to make a chart out of this data. So here are some ideas. So without having to do any of that work, it's going to show me some stuff that might be kind of helpful for me. So I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to click this chart and pull it over in here. I'm just going to set it on top so you can see it. So over here to the left, I have all of my student names. Shauna, Jong, Lily, Barbara, Rebecca, Tanya, all these names. And then it even gives me a key of what I'm looking at. So here are the Unit 1 scores, Unit 2, gold is Unit 3, green is Unit 4. So typically I would have known better than to include the total here, but I wanted to show you something. Let's say I like what's on here, but I want to make a change to it. I want the total to not be on there because I feel like that's superfluous data. I don't need to have data from all the units and then also have the total in the same measurement. So if I just click on here and get my blue box, which means it's selected, and then click the 3 dots up here in the upper right hand corner, I can edit this chart. And this is going to be all of the components of this chart that Google has already put together for me. So it's going to tell me what kind of chart it is, what range these cells are coming from, how it's organized, all this kind of stuff. Now these series are the data that it's pulling. So right now it pulled from the column that said Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, and then finally down here the one that says total. If I just want to get rid of total, I'm just going to click the 3 dots here and click remove, and you'll see that that total data just disappeared. So now I have the data that I want. I just want the 4 individual units, and now I can take this and go print it off and put it on my wall outside of my room. I probably would black out these names, but that's a data visualization, so you can see which kids, where the struggles are, where they're doing better. And you can visualize this in a million different ways too. If I go in here and edit the chart, I can have it horizontally, I can do it vertically, I can change the way that it looks, I can customize the fonts, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not gonna like go too deep into that because we don't have time, but just, you don't have to build these on your own. They're designed for you, and you can even come in and edit the smallest little pieces of it to make it look however you want. So I think that's just a kind of a fun way to get your data, and it's a little bit easier than a lot of the things that we're doing out there with trying to use SysK12 and pull data out, or just keeping it on paper. This way it does it all for you. So that's a way that you can do charts with sheets. And I know that this might seem kind of advanced, so this is, I'm just showing you what it does with a chart. Don't feel like your chart needs to look like that. If you wanted yours to be more basic, you could just highlight Unit 1 and click Explore, and then you could get scores just for Unit 1. So here's every student score for Unit 1, right? Same principles apply here, really basic stuff. Okay. I am going to get out of charts. If you'd like to mess around with charts, you may. Okay. The next thing that we will cover are protected sheets. So whenever I was teaching 7th grade language arts, we would do data teaming, which means we put all of our data together and we would analyze all of that data together. But I didn't always want, oh, is this one not shared? Let me make sure this one's shared to everybody. Give me a second, friends. So sometimes I forget to make sure people can copy these, so give me a second. So the idea behind a protected sheet is that you can build like a little warning that's going to happen before somebody makes a change. So for example, if I have painstakingly put all this data onto a spreadsheet and I don't necessarily want the person in the classroom next door to come in and delete everything, I can protect the sheet. Okay, you should be able to make a copy on that protected one now, I think. And here's what that looks like. So, I believe I have 2 sheets on this one. Yeah, so sheet number 1, if you look down here at the bottom, it says sheet 1 and then there's a little lock by it. That tells people who are viewing this sheet that this data is protected. And all that looks like is if I double click here and I start typing, whoops, not there. If I come in here and I click and I start typing something new and I hit enter, it's going to say, heads up, you're trying to edit part of the sheet that shouldn't be changed, accidentally edit anyway. So this can take some of that fear out of, hey, I don't want to share my data with anybody else because they're going to screw it up. You can either lock it down completely by protecting your sheet, or you can have it be a warning like that. So you can, if I want to make sure that nothing happens with Unit 4, I'm just going to highlight Unit 4 data here, and I'm going to click data, and I'm going to go to protected sheets and ranges, and then if I click over here where it says set permissions, I'm going to restrict who can edit this to only me. I can either have it show a warning or I can restrict it completely. So all that means is they're going to get a pop-up that says don't do that, you're making a mistake, or it's going to completely deny them the ability to make a change on there. So one thing that people always tell me is I don't like putting my data on sheets because everything's shared on Google with everybody on my team and everybody in my school, and I feel like something's going to happen to it and I don't know how to control and to keep that from happening. So protected sheets is going to keep anything that you save onto a spreadsheet. It's going to keep that from ever being messed up, right? Alright, so that's just the super basics of a protected sheet. And again, I have another sheet down here that's unprotected, and all that means is I could come in here and just delete the whole thing and nobody'd ever know the difference. Nobody'd know who did it. Everybody would be angry, and even the person who did it might not even know that they did it. But think if they went in there and they tried to do something dumb like that, or they didn't know what they were doing, they hit delete, and then it said, hey, don't do this. You're making a huge mistake. Oh, they would hit cancel and it would go back to the way that it was before. So that's why we want to have protected sheets, to make sure that nobody else is messing with our data, deleting our data, goofing with our data. Alright, protected sheets. Alright, got any questions about protected sheets? Just let me know. We're going to start getting into the good stuff now, and that's going to be your basic formulas. So, if you want to click here, and again, I will hope that this is shareable. Go ahead and make a copy of this one. And you're going to see basically a template for data that I would have used in my classroom. But I also over here have put in the different formulas that I use pretty regularly and that I would say just about any teacher should know how to use if you think that you want to use. Yeah, I see everybody's trying to get this one, so let me make sure everybody can get it. Alright, I guess I forgot to share some of these. That one should be shared now. My bad, sorry. So, if you're going to do anything with data, you want to know how to do these. The first one is equal sign. That just means you put equals and you can have it do just about any mathematical calculation. Sum is adding up a group of numbers and totaling them. Your average is going to be just what it sounds like. So is max and min. And then the next ones, count if, and if, are just going to put different things in a cell based on what is in a different group of cells that it's looking at, or a reference group of cells. So just to show you what this looks like, and I would recommend you kind of play with this too on your own. Just find an empty cell somewhere on a spreadsheet and type an equal sign. So you'll know that you've started a formula because it's gonna be blue. It's gonna have this little question mark next to it. So what I mean when I say the equal sign is the most basic formula, if I put equals and then I put 2 and then I put a plus and then I put a 2, that is a formula. If I hit enter, it's going to run the formula, which is going to give me a 4. You see it right there. And it could be anything. I could do equals 256, and then a / for division 8, and I'm going to get 32. So 256 divided by 256 divided by 8 is 32. It can be multiplication. If I want to do 8, and multiplication is going to be your asterisk, of course, and then times 10, and then hit enter, that would be 80. So just about any simple mathematical calculation can be done with the equal sign. Let's do 200 minus 99. That's going to be 101. So it's a calculator. The equal sign is basically just a calculator. It's going to calculate in that cell where you type it, whatever you want. So your mileage may vary on that. You might not use it that much. You might end up using it all the time. I know sometimes when I'm messing with data, that's a lot quicker than pulling out a calculator, opening something up, just telling the computer, hey, do this math problem for me, save me some time. Alright, the next one is going to be sum. So what the sum formula does is it's going to add up a group of cells and give you the total. So that's what's happening in this cell right here. If you double click on the first total cell, you're going to see a formula in action. It says equals sum, and then in parentheses you have the area of cells. Now this is you can actually kind of cheat this one since it's such an easy oh, pardon me, here we go. Since it's such since it's such an easy one to do, I think my screen was frozen there for a while. Sorry guys, can you see that? Okay, I think it's back now. Alright. So since sum is so easy, it's going to be up here in the functions tool. So in the upper right hand corner where it has functions, you can click there and put sum, and it's going to create that one for you. Now you can even make it easier by first highlighting the numbers that you want to be summed. So you see how I have these 4 cells here are blue, and then I come and hit the functions and then hit sum, and it will automatically run that function for me and put it into that next cell. So if you ever have a group of data and you want to add those up, highlight it, come up here and hit sum, and then it will do it for you. And it will do the same thing for average. So average is our next one, and I want the average down this way. If I highlight all those, I hit the formula button up here in the upper right hand corner, and I click average. It's going to give me the average of all the scores in that column. So on. So here's the average here, here's the average here. Now another thing you can do, can you guys, not see me? Oh, I think my screen is goofed up. Alright, let me put this over here. Oh man, I think I was, I had not switched my screen over onto the live feed. My bad, guys. Can you, okay, I think you can see it now. Alright, I think we're on the same page now. Alright, so I don't know if I need to go over that. You guys, I'll just go back over just to make sure. So, let's start back with equals. So, equal sign in a cell, if you put equals like that, then you can type in a simple calculation. So, I'll just do 5 plus 5, right? And then hit enter, and it turns it into 10. So that's how equals is a formula. So it could be any mathematical calculation. I'm sure you heard me talking about it. Maybe you didn't see it because I have the wrong screen up. Alright, so your formula button is up here. So if you missed that, so let's say I'm going to delete these all out of here. And I'm going to highlight these 4 numbers, and I'm going to hit the formula button, which is right here. And then click sum, and it will automatically sum up those 4 cells. If I hit enter, it'll tell me the total is 62. Now, another thing you can do that's helpful is now that Google knows that you want to reference these 4 cells to put a total in here, I can click this little blue box here and drag this all the way down, and it's going to run that same formula for all of these 4 cell references here. So this formula is, this is a formula, this is a formula, this is a formula, but I didn't have to go type all those in. Google did that for me because I dragged that little box down, right? Alright, so we have a strange friend here in the chat. We'll hide that guy. Okay. And the same thing works for average. So if I want to highlight all of these cells, and then I want to click up here where it says formula and click average, it'll do the same thing here. So now I have my average here, and I'm going to drag this box through these 4 or 5, pardon me, and it will average all of those. So now all of those average boxes have the average in them. So the functions for max are pretty easy. For max, you just, it's a equal sign, and then you want within whatever the range is. So the way cell ranges work is you need to know the letter and the number. So I want the range to be from C2, and then you put a colon in the middle, and I want it to go to C16. So right now it's going to give me the max value, the highest value between cells C2 and C16. If I hit enter, oh, I didn't type max. That was my problem. All right, so I want equals max between C2 and C16, and I hit enter, and it's 18. And again, I can drag that through these ones, and it will give me the highest total. It's going to be the same thing with min. I'm going to put equals min. I'm going to have C2 colon C16. Hit enter, and it's going to give you the lowest value for that column. And drag that all the way through. So now you have your high value, your low value, and then that's going to take you to the bottom where you can start doing your count formulas. So down here, if I want to count something, let's say, well, I'll just show you the formula because this can be a little bit tricky. So if you go to the next tab over here, this is already all full because I put a bunch of formulas in it already. So the formula that I have for number of students who passed, if you double click on this, is a count if formula. So what this means is I have equals count if, and then inside of the parentheses I have H2 through H16. So that's reference to this group of cells right here. And then I put a comma, and then I put in quotations pass. So what this formula does is it looks at all of the values in cells H2 through 16, and if they pardon me, if it's a certain value, it's going to say pass. So if this one says pass, it's going to count it. So there are 6 instances of pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I get a number 6 here. And you have the same formula down here, except H2 through H16, if it says retest, it puts that here. So every kid who has retest counts that here. So now I know the number of kids that I need to have come in to do a retest on that unit or whatever. These are over here are actually another formula, the if formula, but this is getting to a little bit more advanced place where I would not guess you guys would run out and be doing an if formula, but just to show you the kind of thing that you can do. In this column I have if, and what if means, it says, hey, if the data does this, do this, or this. So in G2, if it is below, if their score is below 55, it's gonna, pardon me, if their score is above 55, it is going to be a pass. Otherwise, it's going to be a retest. That's all this formula is saying. So look at G2. If the number there is higher than 55, say pass. If it's anything else, say retest. So that formula fills this, and every one of these, it does a check on that number. If it's higher than 55, they get a pass. If it's lower than 55, it scores them a retest. So that's where I get those words that I then count if down here. Make sense? I don't know if that one can be a little bit complicated, but those are going to be your basic formulas. I would say if I were you, you need to be able to do an equal sign formula. Some average, min, and max are gimmies. So if you can do those, you can start doing basic data stuff with students like tomorrow, as long as you have a data set. Now, if you want to start getting a little bit crazier with it, you can start doing stuff like your count, like your count if and your if formulas. And those are a little bit more tricky, but there's a lot more things you can do once you start doing those. Alright, so that was a lot of stuff with formulas, and I went through them really fast. So if you guys look on that tab that says practice with formulas, you can double click on those, look at the formulas, change the data, or just straight up copy those out of there and put them in your own spreadsheets, and you can start doing stuff with your own data that way. But yeah, let me know if there's any questions, and I will try to help you out with any of misunderstanding or confusion about how those work on there. Okay, let's move on to the next. Alright, so next is going to be conditional formatting. What conditional formatting does is, and this one might be blocked too, so let me make sure it is available. Yes, Mr. Hoskins, it can calculate mode. I'd be happy to probably show that to you another time, but we're kind of running short here, so I want to move on. Let me make sure that you guys have access to the conditional formatting one. So conditional formatting, what it does is, we probably know what formatting is. Formatting is going to change the way something looks, pretty much. It's going to make it bold, it's going to change the color, something like that. So what we want to happen is for a cell to do something based on the information in the cell. So alright, you guys should have access to this one now. Okay. So over here, I want to apply conditional formatting to, let's say, just this column. So I'm going to highlight all the values in the column for Unit 4. And I'm going to come up here to Format, and I'm going to click where it says Conditional Formatting, right? So it already has applied to range, F2 through F16. That's this group, and it highlights it automatically. It creates a conditional format, and it's going to turn them all green, which is a little bit irritating. Now here's what I want to happen. I want, if you have a score of 15 or above, for it to be green. So I'm going to format cells if, where it says cell is not empty, I want this to be cell is greater than or equal to 15. And you'll see immediately a bunch of those cells change colors. So it's already created my conditional format, and since this color is already green, I'll just go ahead and leave it. Actually, I want it to be like this green. There we go. So I'm going to use that paint bucket to change the green color and then click done. So now any score that students got that was 15 or above is green, right? Now I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to highlight all this again. I'm going to come over here to my conditional format rules. I'm going to add a new rule. And I'll say if you got between 10 and 15, let's go, is between 10 and 14, because I don't want to double dip on 15. It'll screw up my format. So if it's between 10 and 14, I'm going to have it be yellow, right? And then I'll click done. So now my intermediate scores here, where I might need to go in and work with these kids. And then I'm going to highlight all this again. I'm going to add another new rule, and I'm going to tell that if it is less than or equal to 9, I want that to be red. Done. So now I have conditionally formatted all of that data to kind of tell me where my different students are. So I know that these red kids, they might need to be in my intervention group. These kids that are yellow, they might need to go into a reteach. And then these kids that are green, they might need to move on to next or go into some sort of enrichment task. So, and then I can also change this conditional formatting. I can just have it cover the whole range too. So if I want this to go from C2 to F16, and then I can do this for every unit. So I can conditionally format every single score that my kids have gotten in the school year. And you can even pre-conditional format your sheet. So I could take my sheet, I could format all the cells conditionally, and then have that be like where my kids are doing a Google form quiz. And then as they submit their scores or whatever, it would automatically change the colors of those cells. And so if there's anybody at the middle school who, if you still use that data tool that me and a couple other guys worked on a few years ago, that's all that this is doing. It's just changing colors based on where kids fall on the RTI scale, if they need intervention or if they need enrichment or if they need reteach or whatever. So that's why I like to use conditional formatting for stuff like that. But there's a million reasons that you could use conditional formatting. And I'm actually going to get to another really cool one here in a few minutes. But there's conditional formatting for you. We're running short on time. I'm going to skip data validation. It is really cool because it allows you to make stuff like drop-down menus inside of a sheet. But I don't want to go too much longer. We only got about 10 more minutes. So I'm going to skip data validation. If you're dying to know more about data validation, please let me know and I will totally give you a one-on-one data validation session. All right, let's go into other stuff. So these are going to be more for efficiency, usefulness, to help you out kind of things. The first, and a lot of these are going to be fun too. Yeah, Katie, totally for organizing data. Like, isn't it nice to look at a spreadsheet and know, like, have a pretty good picture of what your kids are doing, or just anything. Like, you know, even if you schedule your meals with it and every green one is pizza night, you just know how many times you're going to have pizza this month. That's really fun. Okay, so let's get back into other stuff. The first is the Sheets Gallery templates. Now, you may or may not know this exists, but as a Google Apps for Education user, you get access to a ton of pre-made templates that do all sorts of stuff that you can use in your classroom. So there is sheets for attendance, there's a grade book, there's an assignment tracker, to-do list, there's all other kinds of stuff too. You can look down through these, and there's even more. If you just search online, you can find more. But I used to use stuff like the attendance all the time and the roster. Like it's always hard to have an electronic copy of your roster, especially because we have SysK12, which is kind of a pain in the behind. So if you just create a roster on Sheets early with the roster template, you can use that. You can just copy that every time you need to do like a field trip count or a lunch count, or if you're doing like a activity where you have to contact parents and they need to bring in like ice cream toppings or whatever. Like, it's nice just to have an electronic version of that in Sheets, and you just copy it every time and reuse it all the time. So yeah, check out those templates because those are really cool. The next set down here are going to be just templates of stuff that I use or I have stolen from people on the internet. So the first one is pixel art. if I've been in your classroom, I might have done this with you this year with your students if you invited me in to do a technology lesson with you. So what this pixel art does is it actually uses conditional formatting, which I was talking about before, and this one's super fun. This is one of my favorite things to do with like primary kids who are maybe not totally tech savvy, but this is a way to trick them into doing something, conditional formatting. So what this pixel art template does is all these numbers down the left hand side are codes, basically. So if you think of like coding or computational thinking, where if you type one thing and it points to another thing, that's exactly what's happening here. So one thing I'll have students do is let's make an animal with pixel art. So if I want to make a flamingo, I can type for 22 over here is pink. So I'm going to type a 22 and then a 22 and a 22. And you see every time I type 22 in one of these cells, it turns pink. That's conditional formatting is what's happening. But it's kind of a fun way to do conditional formatting. See if you can guess what my animal is. Whoops, that should be a 2. Anybody know what it is? I'll let you guess. But yeah, that's a pixel art template, and any of those numbers that you copy over there, yeah, it's a flamingo. Mrs. Lester got it. Congratulations, Mrs. Lester. You don't win anything except the pride of knowing what a pixel flamingo looks like. So yeah, copy this template and use it with your kids. It's a really fun way. It's like very Minecraft-y. Oh, did I say it earlier? I did. Good guess on the gopher, Miss Nidecker. It's close. So this is fun to use for like a writing prompt, like have them create the character and then you can start writing about it. So I always just put a little Google drawing up here and you click on it and then you can type the name. So we're going to say Flamey the Flamingo. Alright, and so then you could also have another one and they could type a story about it, right? So it's just really kind of for fun. But it's a fun template that kids do like to do a lot of stuff with. Alright, let's close out of that one and a few other ones. If you are a Twitter person, Alice Keeler has a spreadsheet that allows students to tweet. This is amazing how this works. So on this spreadsheet, you'd share this out to your entire class all together. And over here, they would type what their tweet was going to be. Whoops, this PD rocks. And then they could put their name here. And they get a little limiter here that tells them how many characters they've used. So they use 22, that's okay. You can put your classroom hashtag in here. So I'll just do Fulton Proud. And then it generates a link. So if I click this link, it's going to take me to Twitter with all of that information in a tweet, and then I just have to click tweet. So it says, yo, this PD rocks via Jim Bob. So that was the student who typed that tweet up. So after you do that, if you're using like a classroom computer or it's a shared document that you have access to, as the teacher, you can just go through afterwards and click tweet, and all your kids can send tweets out on your account, but it will say via whatever their name is. So you can have kids put their initials or have them use their first name or an alias or whatever it is that you want to do. But I use this all the time in my classroom with my classroom Twitter account, so students could share like links to their work, their thoughts on a book. We could have a classroom Twitter chat, stuff like that. So that's another kind of interesting how it works, but it's really cool, innovative use of Google Sheets. I'm going to go ahead and tweet that out. That's for real going to be on Twitter, folks. Alright, a couple others. The random student picker. So something that I was always struggled with was to make sure I was picking students, not all the same student every time. So this is another Alice Keeler one. If I open this up, you're going to get basically a spreadsheet page that will have a student's name on it, but if you click the tab down here at the bottom that says directions, it'll tell you what you need to do. But then the third one, if you click roster, if you go and type your kid's name in here. I think maybe you guys don't have access to this one again. Let me make sure. But on that roster, if you put your kids' names in there, and then you go back to that first page, and if you refresh the page every time you do that, it'll put a new student's name up, right? So if I hit refresh, it'll put a new kid's name up there. Yeah, Carrie, I know some of these don't. I'm trying to make sure I shared them. I thought they were shared with everybody in Fulton, but they weren't, so I'm kind of doing that as I go through. Alright, so now everybody should have that random picker one. Sorry about that. Okay, so that one's just simple. The directions are all there on it, so you can do it. As you get to it, you can go through and check that out. I'm going to make sure I go through and I give everybody access to everything. So if you don't get to this, I will make sure when the session's over, I will make sure I open it up to anybody in the whole domain of Fulton Schools, so don't worry. The next couple, this one is a student sheets trainer. So on there's just a bunch of interactive activities you can go through with your students. The writing prompt generator, that one's by Eric Kurtz. And what it does is it gives you three, I think this might not be the emoji one. This one gives you a couple of phrases, and you can pick those, and they can give you a place where you can start a piece of writing. The emoji one is another one by Eric Kurtz, and this one, instead of using pictures, it uses emojis. So every time you click one of these, it will give you a random set of emojis, and then these are things that students could write about. So if you click 3 emojis, you get an 8-ball, a violin, and a crescent moon. Now I have to write a story that has those 3 things in it. Battle Sheets is a battleship game that reuses Google Sheets. So you just share that with a couple of students. They would come in here. One would pick player 1, the other would pick player 2, and then the instructions are all on here. So the kids would go through and just follow the directions as they went. And the last would be the student learning database. So this is another one that I used whenever I was in a classroom. And this is for the book Wonder. So what the students do is they fill out this matrix information database based on all the characters in that story. So this could be for a literature book. With this, we have characters and you have a story that students are following along with, or it could be something nonfiction informational, a way to keep track of that. But all the students are basically keeping a log in a database of all the stuff that's happening in the book or whatever it is that you're studying. Okay, before I move on at all, I want to make sure that I give you guys access to all those things that I just shared. So I'm going to just very quickly go into my instructional technology folder and give everybody access. Okay, so everybody should have access to anything that was in that folder. If I missed something, you might not have it, but I will make sure I get everything in there, and you guys get access to all that stuff. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I am not going to individually go in through all these add-ons, but I do want you to consider using these with Sheets. So these are all things that are going to add extra functions to a Sheets spreadsheet that you might not necessarily get out of the box with the Google tool itself. So Flubaroo is a quiz add-on. It will allow you to make quizzes with Google Sheets that will be automatically graded. It actually goes a few steps beyond a Google Forms quiz. So Forms quizzes are great, but Flubaroo takes it a couple of steps further, so that's worth looking into. Mail Merge is an add-on that allows you to send like a group of emails out. As long as you have everybody's email address in there, you can have a different message go to everybody with attachments and all that stuff. It's basically a way to program a bunch of different emails to all go out at the same time. Personalized mass emails. The template gallery, this is kind of like the one I showed before, except vastly expanded, and it's by a user, a guy named Vertex42, vertex42.com. But these are a bunch of different spreadsheet templates, so if you add that on, every time you're in Sheets, you can pull up a brand new template directly from the gallery that's curated by that user. Doctopus is another, it does stuff like mail merge, but it has a bunch of other tools. Doctopus does so much it's hard to even go into it here, but it's a way to organize, manage student projects. You get timeline, you get project management stuff. It's really good. Autocrat is another one, kind of like mail merge, but it allows you to take different spreadsheets and put them together and organize the data in ways that make sense and allow you to not have 1,000 spreadsheets all over the place. Flippity lets you make flashcard games out of spreadsheets. So if you take your cells and you put all the different stuff into a cell on a spreadsheet, you can create flashcards out of that. Save as doc. I actually use this one all the time because I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but if you are a person that uses Sheets, you can't save a sheet as a Google Doc, which is so irritating because sometimes you want to design something in Sheets because the way that it works, but you can't save it into Docs. So you have to use this add-on called Save as Doc. So there's times when you might make like a worksheet, or you might make a student organizer or project plan page or something with Sheets, and you want to get a Doc version to print off and save it that way. That's the way that lets you do that. And finally, you have add reminders. That's just a way in a spreadsheet. So let's say you do have a data spreadsheet and you need to update it for your next data cycle. Add reminders will send you a reminder that says, hey, make sure you update your data before your next data cycle. So it's a way that you can create deadlines and reminders that just kind of sit inside of the spreadsheets that you already have with all the data and stuff already there. All right, so those are a bunch of things that you can do with Sheets. You have some add-ons, you have some templates, and you have some very basic training stuff there. I would recommend that you go later on, just if you ever have a question about Sheets, just come back to this page and go back into all those templates and those copy pages that I sent out there and just play around with them, mess around with them, make sure that you're comfortable with it. And another thing, if you ever have questions about Sheets, I'm happy to always come and help you out with this stuff as we go through the rest of the school year. I know we only got a couple of weeks left, but if you do need extra support with anything, that's what my job is. So please have me come and help you, and I would be more than happy to do that. So as we wrap up, a couple of things I would ask for you to do. The first one is, if you are a Fulton Public Schools teacher, please click this last link here that says FPS teachers evaluate this session. I apologize, we had some technical problems. This is still a relatively new thing, doing these live streams, but I do want your feedback on how we can make them better. People tend to like doing these, so I would like to expand them more and do them more often. But I can only make them better if you evaluate our sessions. So please let me know what you thought of today's session, and go ahead and put in there if there's sessions that you're looking for in the future, if there's something you'd like to see offered at this time or in these after-school live web sessions. I would love to cover stuff that you are looking for specifically. Also, you can come back and you'll be able to watch this later. If you come back to this page, this video will be embedded on there, so you can watch it again later if you want, if you need to have a reteaching moment yourself. Also, since you're a person who is passionate about this and cares, please recommend that your coworkers and other teachers you work with check these sessions out as well. I would like to see more people taking advantage of these materials, and you're the ones who are passionate about it, and you're the ones who care, so you're the ones who are going to have much more impact than me begging teachers to do it. So please spread the word of that, about the way that we are making these things available, and we would like to see these programs continue to grow and get bigger and better and more useful for teachers as we go throughout the year. So yeah, that's it for today's Sheets session. Just please remember, if you didn't sign in at the beginning, make sure you get back up there and hit that sign-in sheet. Make sure you get your credit for being here. This is the last session before PD logs are due for Fulton teachers, so go ahead and add this on there. It is on the master list, but you can go ahead and give yourself the hour of credit. Just make sure you record today's date and time. Thanks again for tuning in. We will have one more after-school live session. It is going to be on sketchnoting, and that will be after school on May 1st, I think. I don't have my calendar open at the moment, but we will do one more of these. So it'll be on sketchnoting. It's not your typical tech session. It'll be more of a number 2 pencil skill, which means something we do on paper. But it's something that I think is really cool, and it's something that I would like to offer for kind of a fun thing to do at the end of the year. So thanks again, guys. Again, tell others about it, and I will see you guys at the beginning of May for sketchnoting. All right, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.